Hi, I'm Billy, one of the Fuji guys, here to show you some of the top features found on our HS series cameras for 2012. We have the HS30, which is a model that uses lithium-ion batteries. It comes with a hood and offers raw shooting capabilities. We also have an HS25 model that does not include the hood, cannot shoot raw, and uses AA batteries for a slightly less price. So the two type of cameras, other than those differences, are exactly the same. So please look at some of these top features on these cameras. Both the HS series cameras offer, of course, the capabilities to shoot in RAW. Actually, the HS30 offers the ability to shoot in RAW. The HS25 doesn't have that option at all. There are some subtle differences between the two, but again, I mentioned earlier, functionality are pretty much the same. So on the HS30, you push the menu OK button, and when you scroll down to the image quality, this is where you can change from, again, this is fine JPEG or normal JPEG. In fine, it uses less compression, so you can get a larger file size and the best image possible when it comes to shooting in that. And of course, this is your resolution between 16 megapixel, 8 megapixel, whatnot. If you want to shoot in RAW, you go into you scroll left to the shooting tab, scroll down to the setup tab, and then scroll back out to the menu and scroll right down until you see the ability to shoot in RAW. And there you go. You want to turn the RAW on. You have the option to shoot in RAW or RAW and JPEG. So let's just take a look at that. And basically what it's going to do now, it's going to save me both a RAW and a JPEG image. And it gives me a quick preview, of course, of shooting in JPEG. It's great to have. It takes all the settings that you have set for that particular scene. But in the RAW mode, you have some abilities to, of course, manipulate that with the Fuji software afterwards. So that's just a quick look at the RAW shooting capabilities of the HS30. Let's take a quick look at the motion panoramic mode on both the HS30 and HS25 cameras. In order to get to the mode, you turn the dial to the panorama mode. And this mode allows you to take a 360 panoramic image of the scene just by swinging the camera left to right. You can also change the angle of which you want to rotate from a complete 360 to just 120, 180. I'm just going to select 120 for the purpose of this demo. Also, you can also change the direction from going left to right, right to left, up and down, down, up. If you change the direction from, say, up to down, down to right, you actually can rotate the camera this direction and do a panoramic sweep that way to give you a little bit more resolution. For simplicity, I'm just going to use the left to right option. And basically what you do is you push the shutter button halfway down to get your focus and your exposure, then push all the way down and basically rotate the camera in a consistent speed. There's a little guide that kind of helps you follow the line. Once you have the complete rotation, the camera automatically then creates that panoramic image. As you can see, very simple to do. You push down on the directional pad to play back the panoramic image. And as you can see, it does a wonderful job. And, ideally, you probably want to use a tripod, but in this instance, it's just a quick little show. You can also zoom in on the image as well. You can push the zoom button here, and then you can pan left and right and kind of see the image more in a full size. And again, that's just a quick look at the panoramic mode, both on the HS series cameras, the HS30 and the 25. Let's just take a quick look at the manual controls on the HS30 and HS25 series cameras. There's several different modes, of course. You have the EXR mode, which is automatic. You have this camera mode, which is basically automatic as well. Then you have the P program auto mode, which is automatic, but gives you options to control things like, the color, the tone, the sharpness, whereas the auto mode would lock most of that function out. Now, in order to do manual shooting on this camera, there's several ways to do that. To do that, of course, you have the options of shutter and aperture priority, or even full manual control. So I'm going to show you the full manual control operations of this camera. Basically, you have the ability to change the aperture on the camera. You push the command down the top, and you rotate it left to right to adjust the aperture. As you can see there, you'll notice that this line is basically an exposure line. It shows if your image is going to be underexposed or overexposed. So with this particular setting, let's see if I increase the aperture here. You'll notice it's at the minus. If I take a snapshot, it's actually going to be a dark image. And that's how I can tell. If I increase the aperture to make it faster, you'll see if I take that same shot, it's a lot brighter now. Now, in addition to that, to change the shutter speeds on the camera, you have to push the plus or minus exposure button, and now it toggles between the shutter speeds. So I can adjust the shutter speeds up to 1/4000th of a second, or all the way down to a long exposure of approximately, if I can just bring this down here to the maximum of 15 seconds, which is more than enough for a lot of the nighttime scenes. As you notice again, you'll see the plus or minus. You notice that the shutter speed is way too slow. If I take that picture, obviously a 2.5 second exposure is going to give me basically a washed out image, as you can see right there. So that's how you use the manual modes. On aperture and shutter priority, it's very similar in the sense that now all you have to do is just rotate this dial and the aperture will automatically adjust in itself. Same thing with the aperture mode. If I adjust the aperture, the shutter speeds will automatically adjust in itself. That's just a quick look at the manual modes on the HS series of cameras. Let's take a quick look at the intelligent digital zoom function on both the HS series cameras. In order to enable the special zoom, you push the directional pad up and it gives you a 1.4 time magnification up to 2 times. And that makes effectively your focal length go from 720, of course, to 2 times of that, which is over 1440 in terms of millimeter equivalency to a 35. It's very effective. What it actually does is that it not just crops the image, but it also sharpens the edge so that it gives you a much nicer, sharper image than if you were just to crop that image on the computer. So again, here's just a quick look. You can set it to 1.4 to 2 times and take the snapshot. We take a look at the image. As you can see, it comes up exceptionally clear, better than any digital zoom that I've ever seen before. And because it's giving you a good full resolution 16 megapixel zoom, it does an incredible job. Again, it sharpens the edges and it doesn't look like digital zoom whatsoever. So a neat feature if you want to get just a little bit closer over and above the 30 times zoom that's available on the HS series. In order to enable the high-speed continuous shooting, you push the continuous shooting button on the top here and it brings up a little menu for you. You can select between the various different continuous shooting options. There's what's called best frame capture as well as a continuous shooting mode. In the continuous shooting mode, basically you can set it up to shoot at different speeds up to 11 frames a second, but it gives you an 8 megapixel image, or at full resolution at 8 frames a second. So I'm just going to show you the 11 frames a second. Again, pushing halfway to pre-focus, and then pushing all the way down to capture the shot. And it just fires a bunch of pictures for you. You can let go at any time. And when you look back at the images on playback, so once all the images are recorded to the credit, I can push the playback button, and it brings me down. What happens with the playback mode is that it actually bundles all the group images into the small little screen. If you want to view each individual continuous shot, you would have to push down on the directional pad. And now I can actually check all the shots that I've taken with that continuous shooting mode. To get out of that, I push the back button. Okay. Now, in addition to that, there's also a mode called best frame capture. Again, pushing that button will bring you back to shooting mode. Push that button will bring you back to the continuous option. You can choose best frame capture. And in that mode, basically, in terms of the setup, it allows you, again, to shoot at different frame rates. Again, I'm going to select the 8 frames a second instead. And the number of pictures to be captured. And you have the options of 7 images or 16 images. So I'm going to select 16. The way this grid works is that as you scroll left and right, you'll see the numbers change. 6 to 9, 5 to 10, 7 to 8. Let's imagine I select 5 to 10. What that means is that before I actually take the picture, 5 images will be captured. There'll be an image captured as I push the shutter button all the way down, and there'll be 10 more images after I've actually pushed the shutter button. So let's take a look at that setting right there. I'm going to push OK for that. And again, once I push the halfway button to pre-focus, it starts to take picture, but it doesn't capture anything until I push fully down. Once I push fully down, it captures the shot at the one instance I push the shutter button. 5 shots before I push the shutter button, and 10 shots after I fully depress the shutter button. And that's basically the best frame capture. It takes sort of the guesswork away from doing sort of fast action shots. Let's take a quick look at the HD video functions on the HS series camera, whether it's the HS30 or the HS25. In order to record video, all you have to do is push the record button and it starts the recording process. It records full HD video with stereo sound and gives you about 29 minutes per video clip. we highly recommend a Class 6 rated card or faster, as well as a high capacity card, at least 8 gigabytes for HD video recording. You can also take pictures during the videos by pushing the shutter button. So as you can see, I can snap away 3 megapixel resolution images while the video is recording, and it has no interruption on the video whatsoever. I can stop the playback like that. Now there are some different settings that you can change on the camera itself. If you go into the menu and you scroll down to the movie modes, you necessarily don't have to shoot in full HD. You can shoot at 720p, as well as some of these high-speed frame rate modes at 80 frames per second at 640/480, up to 320 frames per second at 320 by 112. In these high-speed video modes, I highly recommend you shoot that in outdoor light, or at least have a lot of lighting, otherwise the video images may be slightly dark. In addition to that, I showed you how to take photos during the video. You can also change that configuration so that there's priority to the actual image itself versus the movie. And what that means is that when I select still image priority, instead of giving me a 3 megapixel image, it's going to give me an 8 megapixel image, but there will be some slight delays during the video recording. So ideally, I like to leave it at the movie priority. That gives me a 3 megapixel image. And again, that's just a quick look at the video option on the HS30 and the 25. In addition to that, of course, you can also shoot in black and white or the other film simulation modes on this camera, as well as change the focusing mechanism so that it's manual focus. And you can manual focus during the video recording on these HS series cameras. The HS series has a lot of external controls that you can select, from the ISO, the exposure, the autofocus system, as well as the white balance. In addition to that, there's also a function button built onto the directional pad. By pushing up, the default setting, of course, on that is the digital intelligent zoom, but you can turn it off. And the way to do that is to hold the function button down for a few seconds. It brings you up to the configuration screen where you can change that function button to do several things, including going right into the movie mode control settings, enabling face detection, as well as shooting in different dynamic range, or even setting that up so that you can toggle between shooting in RAW or JPEG. So if I set it to RAW, what's going to happen now is when I push the function button, it brings me up the RAW option. I can turn RAW on, take a snapshot, shoot that RAW and JPEG image, push the function button, and disable RAW at any time I want to. So again, that's just a quick access option on the HS series cameras. Again, by configuring the function button, all you have to do is just hold down the function button just for a few seconds, and it allows you to configure to what you want. By default, like I said, it's set to digital intelligent zoom, and again, just pushing up, it will automatically enable that function, okay? Quick look at the function button on the HS series. The EXR cameras have a special sensor technology that reconfigures itself to different lighting situation. In the EXR mode, it automatically switches from good lighting to high contrast scenes where you need increased dynamic range, or in scenes where it's very dark and it needs to improve the low light capabilities. And in the EXR Auto, it does it automatically for you depending on the lighting situation. So if it knows that you're shooting in low light, it will switch that mode into a low light mode. Let me just get out of the continuous shooting here. So let me try that again. So you can see it says S and N, and that means it's shooting low light. It's gonna try to reduce half the resolution of the image, but it gives you improved high sensitivity with less noise in it. In bright contrast scenes, it's gonna try to hold the detail. Now, in addition to the auto mode, if you go into the menu, you can actually scroll up or down until you see the EXR mode, and you can change that configuration so that it says, instead of auto, you can have the actual priority that you want to shoot with, whether it's high ISO or increased dynamic range. And again, in high ISO mode, it's going to give me a cleaner image than if I were to shoot in any other mode. So again, if I take a shot at high ISO, it's going to give me a nice clean picture. In addition to that, of course, if you step out of the EXR mode, if you actually just reduce the resolution on the camera from the full 16 megapixels to the 8 megapixels, you will also benefit from the EXR technology. And that's a way to work with EXR without having to be in the EXR mode. If you want to add all your dates to your images, by default this function is turned off on these HS series cameras, but you can actually go into the menu, go over to the Setup tab by scrolling down, and then bringing back up until you see the options for date stamp. You want to turn that on. You have the choice of the date and or the date and time. And it's based on obviously the settings that you set on the camera for date and time. So if you do have the incorrect date on the camera, you need to fix that before you actually set this option up. Again, let's select date and time. And if I just scroll up to the top, I can actually change the dates so that I have the proper dates that are there. So again, you can adjust this at any time you want. So let's just take a quick photo right now. And it should automatically put a date at the bottom right-hand corner. I'm going to preview that image for you right now. Zoom in on it. And I'm just going to scroll down until you can see that for you. Now, the date information that's stored is permanently on the camera. So you cannot remove this date information off the picture once you have that date stamp function on. So I highly recommend, if you don't prefer to have the date on your image, make sure it's turned off by default by the factory. That mode is switched off. Okay, so that's just a quick look at the date and time feature on the HS series cameras. To access the auto bracketing functions of the HS series cameras, you push the continue shooting button, and it brings up a little menu where you can select, the different modes. You also have the ability to do things like the auto exposure bracketing. And that basically gives you a plus or minus in terms of over and underexposed. It takes 3 shots for you, and that's just a quick look again at that mode. And it's great for when you want to check out the scene and see if the pictures look better underexposed or overexposed compared to what the camera's being captured. Of course, that's just a quick look at the auto exposure mode, bracketing mode, on the HS series cameras. Great, that was just a quick look at some of the key features and top features found on the HS series cameras. Don't forget again to subscribe to the Fujiguys for more information on these cameras, as well as follow me on Twitter at Fujiguys. Until then, I'm Billy, one of the Fujiguys.